Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another session with an expert with the Art Society Worcester. We have a goodly number of people attending, which is wonderful. So welcome, everybody. It's lovely to see you. There's some familiar names, but there are some unfamiliar names as well. So really fantastic to have such a great turnout for our experts about the Scala redevelopment. For those of you that don't know the Art Society, just very briefly, we are a membership society with about 250 members. We are not the Art Society, we're not the Worcester Society of Artists, so we're not artists, we actually are the appreciators of the arts. And if you're interested in knowing more about the Art Society and what we do, please do look at our website, which is easily, if you just search the Art Society Worcester, you will find us. And we would be delighted to welcome you as a guest if you wanted to come and see one of our lectures anytime. We meet at Bishop Perrone School on a Tuesday evening once a month. So what I would like to do is to just ask our three guests, and I'm delighted to see you all, just to introduce themselves. Why don't I start with Sarah Jane? If you could introduce yourself, Sarah.
Hello there, I'm Sarah Jane Morgan. I'm Chief Executive at Worcester Theatres. We run, for those of you that don't know, we run the Swan Theatre and Huntington Hall. I've been in post now for coming on for 4 years, led the organisation through the pandemic, and thankfully we're now out the other side and very much enjoying actually working on this project.
Fantastic. And Jamie.
Thanks, Maggie. Hi, I'm Jamie Fox. I am the Programme Manager for the Future High Street Fund at Worcester City Council. I've been working on the programme now for best part of 2 years, from just a couple of weeks after the money was all awarded to the City Council. By background, I'm a Chartered Town Planner and Chartered Surveyor. So.
Fantastic, thank you. And I'll come to Helen in a minute, because what Helen's going to do to introduce herself, but we would like you, if you have got questions for any of our panel, if you can write them in the Q&A boxes, the Q&A box, which you should be able to find either if you're on a laptop or on a desktop or on Zoom. Just look for your Q&A, write your questions in there, and then we will come to the questions towards the end. So we're going to be live for at least half an hour. If there's lots of interest, we've said to Helen that we might actually go a little bit over, but we'll plan to do half an hour. So I will come now to Helen. If you can introduce yourself, and then we will come to your presentation about the plans for the Scala redevelopment. Thank you very much, Helen.
Hi, I'm sorry my camera's off. But I'm Helen Grassley. I'm a director of Burrell Foley Fisher Architects. We are a practice that specialises in theatres and cinemas, and we had the pleasure to be appointed for the Worcester Performing Arts venue. So we've been working with Sarah Jane and Jamie now for about a year, developing the design of the scheme, really getting to know the buildings, and we've submitted a planning and listed building consent application, and the project is moving forward, which is great. So we're really enjoying it.
Fantastic. Good. So what we'll do now, I was lucky enough to see this presentation that Helen has. So we've asked her really just to reproduce the presentation, because Helen presented it at the Guildhall at the event before Christmas, and I know Sarah Jane and Jamie have seen this several times. So over to you, Helen, and run us through the plans, and then we'll come and have an open Q&A session. Thank you.
Marvelous, thank you. Right, now let's try and get this to presenter mode so you don't have to see all my notes. So here we are. We're going to just go back one. So as I say, it's been and it's really a critical part of the Future High Street funded work, looking at the improvements to this end of Worcester, along Angel Street, along Angel Place, and really both. I think the exciting thing is both how the public realm is being improved in that part of town, and in fact you can already see the works progressing. But the Scala project is a kind of absolute cornerstone of bringing a cultural regeneration to Worcester. So we're very excited to be part of that, and it's been a core part of the successful government funding that Worcester has managed to achieve for the sort of multitude of projects around this part of the town centre. So just to be clear, that the elements that we are talking about are this group of buildings here. So at the junction between Angel Street and Angel Place, number 1 is the original Scala cinema. Number 2 is the public toilet block. And number 3 is the Corn Exchange, which is listed, and a really interesting example of an 1848 corn exchange. And the Scala, although not nationally listed, is locally listed. So those are the 3 buildings that we're looking at, and they sit there nestled in with Crown Passage subdividing them and the Wetherspoons behind. One of the joys has been getting to know the inside of these buildings, and I think for many people, because they've been closed off, they've been sort of subdivided as Shipleys over the years, probably haven't seen in them for quite a period of time. So 1922, the Scala cinema was constructed, and it had a really quite elegant fibrous plaster ceiling. And as you can see on the right-hand image, quite a lot of architectural decoration around the sides. Some of that is left, but not all. Sadly, the ceiling has come down and we're just left with the rafters. So here we are, this is the interior at the moment. So you can see all the ceiling has come off, but the circular windows that you used to look out on either side, they're still there in the architectural detailing. And actually the front foyers, the Scala historic foyers are not in such bad condition. And you can see there's some really beautiful elements there. The very elegant terrazzo staircase and its balustrade, and the peacock detailed fan detailed cornice, which we found more of, in fact, yesterday, having taken down some of the Shipley's ceiling. So we're quite excited about that. The other very significant building, the Corn Exchange, it's a fine example. It does present quite an austere outlook to Angel Street, and sadly, the historic entrance is boarded up, and you can't really see in through the windows. And I think this project makes a really fantastic opportunity to bring that section of the street to life. And inside the Corn Exchange, well, to be honest, it has been fairly well mucked about with. It was Habitat and it was Heels. It's been a bar, it's been a restaurant, and it had a mezzanine inserted inside it. But what is lovely is those big original trusses from the major Corn Exchange space. Well, they're still there. And actually, we think the public toilet block is really very fine. The tiling work and the terracotta work are excellent. So we're looking forward to keeping that and really preserving it, doing a bit of repointing, a bit of repair. And the right-hand side detail, which you may or may not have noticed with the big blue doors, actually is a passageway that goes through to the rear of the cinema, what will become the stage end. And you can see the architectural detailing is all of a piece with the main facade on the corner of the street. So how are we proposing to use these buildings? Well, the Scala envelope, the original cinema, will be transformed into the new theatre space, 500 seats, flexible staging so that you can increase the stage size. We'll come on to more of that later, but that's at the core of the scheme, putting that back into being full of an audience enjoying a show. We'll reuse its foyers because they are very, very pretty, and there are 3 of them stacked up. It goes ground first and second, and they'll connect through to the new balconies within the theatre. But what's very exciting is then to the left-hand side of the page, you can see the Corn Exchange with its original mezzanines. Well, our proposal is to connect that through to the Scala and use it as front of house spaces. So bars actually up at this mezzanine level, the potential for exhibition and display, some gallery space, as well as some pop-up bar spaces. And on the right-hand side, above that retained toilet blocks facade, we're going to be building 2 new stories of dressing rooms and wardrobe and back of house to give all the facilities that the theatre needs to operate, get up and running. And those blue doors we were looking at in the photograph earlier become the get-in, because they have a very good, easy route to the stage for carrying in pieces of scenery. we're lucky with the help actually of Worcester Council. We've dug out the original watercolor drawings showing the historic sections, so the original planning applications actually for the Scala cinema, and much of that structure is still in situ. Unfortunately, though, lovely as it would be to simply reinstate what was there before, of course the cinema was designed with the screen right at the back of the space where that purple curtain is, so the sight lines for the cinema operate with a screen right at the back. Whereas what we will need to do is to pull that line forward. So pull a proscenium line forward. So in fact, this is the cross section or long section through our proposed theatre space. And you can see that we've taken the two rear bays and used those for the stage with lighting bars. And on the left-hand side, you can see how we've tied in the 3 levels of the theatre with those existing rather fine terrazzo foyers on the left-hand side. So the stalls at the bottom, and then 2 layers of balcony, each connecting through to one of the foyers. Working, and this is a plan of the plan of that space in standard configuration. So where we get up to the 500 seats, we have a stalls area in the middle as a central block, a rear block rising up from the stalls level, and slip seats that actually then connect through to the stage space, making really good access for audience to come up on stage for pantomime and so on and so on. But we spent quite a lot of time working with Sarah Jane and her community, a very wide group of users that currently operate in the Swan Theatre, and looking actually at alternative configurations for perhaps amateur groups that have much larger casts than say a show on the professional touring circuit, and probably more elements of sets and props and scenery. So we've developed a flexible auditorium space using a standard piece of theatre equipment called Steel Deck that allows us to pull levels up and down. And with that, we've played the games that you can see. These are 4 of the many possible configurations, with a large stage pulled forward, lower capacity for the auditorium, but much more space around the stage and in the wings, with an orchestra pit, with a flat floor. And it's perhaps easiest to see these illustrated in the 4 alternative sections I've got on the screen now. So the top left looks at bringing the maximum amount of stage in and reducing the number of seats in the stalls. Bottom left shows the orchestra pit and the stall seats. And bottom right, it's quite an interesting one, actually. This is a flat floor scenario, which perhaps could be for music, for a gig, for, you know, a mosh pit in there. And really, the idea is that there are many ways in which you can use this space. And in order to achieve that, we've also looked at how would we create a flexible proscenium. So a curtain line that can move forward with as the front of the stage moves forward. And you can see how we're allocating lighting bars further forward than the standard configuration. So there will be an opportunity to light any kind of activity that's going on with the maximum 4 stage. It's just interesting to look at a comparison between the new venue on the right and the existing Swan. And what you will see is the existing Swan is wider but shallower, and the Scala is narrower but deeper. But they are different formats, I guess, in a way, but they're interestingly comparable in terms of total area. So here for the first time, I'm showing you a plan of all those 3 buildings together. So in the middle, you can see the standard configuration for the Scala, set up as this courtyard theatre. And on the left, that triangular set of spaces, well, they're the dressing rooms, with bottom left, the get-in coming in from Angel Place. And on the right, you can see the ground floor plan of the Corn Exchange, which frankly stays kind of largely as it is, with a bar and a kitchen. But we will reopen that historic front door to the steps going down to Angel Street, and a bit of reconfiguration of the ramp coming in and lift. We're going to be able to provide new facilities in the basement with a significant number of toilets and a changing places toilet. So really conserving, refurbishing and augmenting the facilities that are in the Corn Exchange in order to use it for front of house. Crown Passage, as you can see, splits the 2 buildings, but we've got 2 new openings from Crown Passage, but enable connectivity between the Corn Exchange and the ground floor, the stalls level of the Scala. But the other proposal, within the Corn Exchange, there is a new flight of stairs taking you up to those mezzanines and enabling you to cut across over the top of Crown Passage and connect to the upper level foyers. So just going back to this diagram again, you can see here, if you can see my cursor, that's that new staircase I was just talking about that brings you up from the bar area, up to that mezzanine over the top of Crown Passage, and the connecting back through to the Scala, to the upper levels of the balconies. Accessibility, we've got a really great access consultant on this, so we've thought sort of long and hard about access, not only for members of the public, but also for staff and for performers. And we're delighted that we've got a ground floor, stage level accessible dressing room with a fully fitted accessible shower and WC. So really good facilities, I think, for performers with all sorts of access needs. And we're not just thinking about those physical connections, but also doing a bit of work with neurodiversity and thinking through how to support neurodiverse members of staff and members of audience. So that's quite an interesting piece of work that we're undertaking at the moment. Within the Corn Exchange, so just a little image as to kind of what that might be like. Fundamentally, we're keeping the mezzanines that are there, but actually it's a big, light, generous, airy space. And I think being able to, at the moment, you can't actually stand up properly up on those mezzanines at the upper level. So we put in new floors, a balustrade, a new staircase. And I think it'll be great to open up that building properly for members of the public to enjoy. And then from the outside, obviously, we're tying together these three buildings. And I think the excitement is going to be about the kind of reactivation of that corner, about really pulling it into the public realm. We've also been working with Jamie Fox and the team at Worcester Highways to look at how to get in, and we're really pleased that working together, we've managed to get an agreement on basically reprofiling the pavement around that corner to allow it actually to be straightforward access straight into the Scala foyer level. So at the moment, you have to go up a couple of little steps, which makes it impossible for those who might be in a wheelchair or have difficulty using steps. So this integration with the overall public realm works is a really brilliant opportunity, I think, to make the whole of that front lively and accessible for everybody. So that takes me through what I wanted to talk about in terms of the presentation. We have got more detailed drawings in the pack. There are, you know, floor plans at every level, but so I can refer to them if I need to. But Maggie, that was really most of what I wanted to say. So for the moment, I'll stop sharing, although I'll very happily pull that back up again if you'd like to.
Fantastic. Lovely. Thank you so much, Helen. That was brilliant. And you kept perfectly to time. So I've had a look at the questions, and there's a perfect question. Thank you, Fiona, from the Museum of Royal Worcester, our colleagues over there. And this is to you, and I know that this was going to be part of what I was going to ask you anyway, was will the Scala replace the Swan Theatre, or will both operate? And if so, how will that be envisaged? How will that happen?
Yes, I'll take that one. Thanks, Maggie. The Swan Theatre and the Scala will both operate for the short-term future, certainly. We haven't got certain spaces in the current Scala redevelopment. We've got no studio theatre space or no rehearsal spaces. So we will need to retain the Swan Theatre. And also, we're very conscious of how many people love and really have sort of used this space really well over the many, many years it's been part of the community. So really wanting to work with the community and build up that use moving forward. And I know there's many people who would like to use the space, and there's many ways that Worcester Theatres are wanting to work with other people in the space. So it will very much become the centre of our outreach and participation work, and we've got lots of ideas of how we're going to develop that. So yeah, certainly for the foreseeable future, both venues will operate. Scala Theatre with all the professional theatre, and the Swan Theatre with all our community work and the community groups that like to use it.
Because one of the things that I remember from the previous presentation was actually the space in the Scala will be bigger. You'll be able to get up to another level in terms of professional touring productions. Do you want to say a little bit more about that, Sarah Jane?
Yeah, absolutely. It will open up a few doors. I mean, I don't want people to think that we're going to be suddenly receiving, West End tours, but it will certainly enable us to bring in some different product to the city, which is really exciting, and will open up some different programming streams. And we hope to be able to look at different things. We do receive a lot of one-nighters at the Swan, and we would really like to be looking at some longer staying shows, some longer theatre productions that are coming into the city. And attracting, like you say, some different types, some different styles of product that we'll be able to bring into the Scala, and also, some more ambitious programming, I suppose, is what we're hoping to be able to achieve in that venue.
Fantastic. One of the questions again, thinking about different sorts of productions, how regularly would you be prepared to change the configuration of the staging, the pit? How easy? I mean, it might be Helen can help with that, but are you familiar with working with a space where you have to keep changing the layout, as it were?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes down to being conscious of staffing. We're not going to be in a position where we can change it every single day, and it will go down to programming. But having that flexibility is going to be incredible. The fact that the whole of the stalls can come out, should we wish to use it that way, it could become a standing venue if we want to do that, which is really lovely. Also, we can be very flexible in what we do in terms of our own Worcester Rep productions, the way we use the staging, the way that some of our community users may want to use the staging. So it's going to be a very usable, a very versatile space, which is incredible for the city to have that. It's going to open up again what programming we can do, how we can use the different space. It's sort of getting to know, I think, the system and how much it's going to be in terms of, how easy it will be to put in and out. And of course, the technicians will get quicker at doing that. But no, we wouldn't want to turn it around every single day. But it's going to be incredibly exciting that we can have that flexibility there. Fantastic.
Thank you. Okay, we've had a few questions then, Jamie, about the funding. So how realistic is this? Where is the funding coming from? And is it likely to be, is this a feasible project? I mean, it's hugely exciting for the city, but is it going to happen?
I hope so. The funding is, the majority of the funding is in place. So as I said at the start, I lead the Future High Street programme. The council benefited from a Future High Street award back in December 2020, and we were awarded £17.9 million to invest in a number of schemes across the town centre. So some of those are the public groundworks, which you see coming forward in the town centre at the moment. And of course, the other major scheme is the performance arts venue that we're just discussing today. We were originally awarded a pot of money for the performance arts venue. A couple of the other schemes which we were awarded funding on, we have been unfortunately unable to deliver, but that has enabled us to transfer the money with the government's approval across to the performance arts venue. So the scheme itself, at the moment, it's probably somewhere between 90 and 95% funded. There is still a small gap in the funding, which we continue to look at, and we continue to raise capital to plug that gap. We're looking at a number of sources. We're looking at Heritage Lottery Fund. We're looking at other public grant money which is available. And we'll also be looking at private sponsorship opportunities. So ultimately, we are confident that we'll be able to plug that gap by the time we start construction, which currently is programmed for autumn of this year.
That was one of the other questions. So in terms of timescales, that's a really ambitious timescale, but you're optimistic that work will start this year.
That's what we're hoping. We've just launched the procurement process to find a contractor. So a notice was published in early February to seek a contractor. Unfortunately, these things aren't quick. So that process will take about 6 months, but we're hoping to have a preferred bidder by mid-summer. And yeah, as I say, all being well, we're hoping to be on site sometime in autumn of 2023. At the moment, it's programmed for a 14-month build. So again, that will take us through to late 2025 for practical completion of the project.
Very exciting. Great. Okay. I know an issue that's a common issue for a lot of people is thinking about the space in Worcester City. Obviously, there's no parking on site. Where would people park in order to come to the theatre if they're not going to be able to walk in from home?
I mean, parking, there is lots of public parking available. So, there's obviously the public car park within the Crown Gate. There are a number of council car parks as well. We do accept that, parking may not be as readily available as it was, or it is at the Swan itself. But, there is an ample supply of parking. And of course, with the bus station immediately adjacent, we're hoping that people won't necessarily have to rely on the cars, and actually they can use public transport to access the venue. So.
Good. Okay. And there was rumours of some of the car parking spaces in the Swan car park area disappearing. Is that anything that either of you know anything about? No. Okay. No. So coming back to you, Jamie, somebody wanting pounds, shilling and pence, what will be the total cost of actually building this project?
That's a $64,000 question. I mean, we're profiling costs on a daily basis, and it does change on a daily basis. We're doing value engineering exercises, so things which are coming in and coming out. We won't know what the final cost is until we've completed the tender process for the contractor. So at this stage, I'm unable to say what the final cost will be. Once we've gone through that procurement process, which I said has already started, the advert is out there. So hopefully by summer of this year, when we have a preferred bidder, we will have a finalised cost. But at the moment, I can't give you a definite answer to that. So. And
assuming that it goes ahead and it gets built, maybe a question now to Sarah Jane: is there a viable business plan post construction in order to ensure that the Swan Theatres and Worcestershire Theatres remains viable? Where are you at with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very much in the process of doing that. I'm about to submit a draft to Jamie in the next coming couple of weeks. I've been working with some independent advisors on that plan as well, who are all industry experts. Yes is the answer. We run at 63% currently at Worcester Theatres. The national average is around 61% in all similar size regional venues across the country. So we already have attendances rather above the national average, which is very, very healthy. We're recovering brilliantly post-COVID. So going into a new venue, a very attractive new venue. I've seen the Hall for Cornwall recently over half term. Borough Foley Fisher, they can design and make very, very lovely buildings. So it's very exciting for the city, and I hope it will really be something that Worcester City will get behind and should really support their local arts organisation.
Great. And thinking about other organisations in the city, we've seen in the Hive in our library a very close collaboration between the city and the university. Is there any potential for links with the university as far as this project is concerned, or has that been done in, is there any logical, straightforward links with the university, and have they been involved in any way?
We certainly, sorry about my phone ring. We certainly work with the university. The university use our spaces here at the Swan Theatre for a lot of their lectures. There's no formal agreement like there is at the Hive, however, but we have a good, strong relationship with them moving forward.
Fantastic. Okay. There was a question about accessibility via lifts to the bars, etc. Helen, I think you covered that in your presentation, did you not?
Yes, we do. So we're putting in a new lift into the Corn Exchange that will take you from pavement level to that ground floor bar, which is currently about 1 metre above pavement level, and then take you up to the mezzanine bar and exhibition space. So that the Corn Exchange is fully accessible. However, it is a staircase connection because of the different levels into the Scala upper balconies. So the wheelchair accessible and lift accessible seating for the Scala within the Scala is at ground floor, and there's a variety of wheelchair positions there, but the entirety of the Corn Exchange is accessible. So the lift goes up to those upper bars and the gallery spaces.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. A couple of questions. I don't know that any of you will be able to answer these. Well, maybe Sarah Jane. Do you anticipate creating a resident theatrical company like the one that the Swan used to have until the theatre had to close due to the withdrawal of council funding?
We already have one. We have the Worcester Repertory Company. We already produced the pantomime, which sees about 18,000 people coming over our 7-week period. We also produce at the Commandery every year. We produce children's theatre. So yeah, it's already here. It's already in place. Fantastic. If you're not supporting, then please pick up a brochure and come and do it. We're already there. We're already doing it.
Excellent. And I'm mindful that we've actually got people joining us from quite a long distance, because what we've done, we advertise all our Zoom accessible program now through the National Society. So we've got somebody joining us from Shrewsbury. Hi, Helen, asking about the Three Choirs Festival. And I suspect that there isn't links with the Three Choirs Festival because that runs very much with the cathedral, does it not? But tell me if I'm wrong.
Absolutely. The venue will be available to any organisation who was looking for space, and we very much work with any organisation, Three Choirs, Algar Festival, anybody that wanted to use the space would very much be able to, as you could with any theatre space. It would be very readily available.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, now then, if there are any last questions, there's Douglas was asking about finances, but I think we covered the finances as much as we can, Jamie, haven't we really? Is there any more detail that Douglas has asked? Cost and how financed? We've talked about cost, and actually it's a bit unclear, and financing is tell us where the finances, apart from the High Street Fund, what other sources of funding have you got?
The majority of it is coming from the Future High Street Fund.
Yeah.
So as I say, over somewhere between 90 and 95% of it is coming from the Future High Street Fund. The rest of the funding, there is a gap. We admit that, we're quite open. There's a gap in the funding at the moment, and we're looking to raise additional revenue. So we're still looking for that small gap that we need to plug. We have got an application into Heritage Lottery funding, and we are looking at a number of other arts organisations to plug that gap. And hopefully now I'll be able to give more detail on that over the next few months as we submit applications, and hopefully they are successful.
Okay, and then a final question for Annie, for Helen from Annie. Will there be a sprung floor for dance?
There will be. I'm going to give you a slightly hybrid answer to that. It's not a fully sprung floor, but it has a flexible bat fixing underneath. So there's a whole range. Dance floors can be anything. There's a full range to the absolute double batted end. So we've got a kind of medium-sized and kind of economic but appropriate level of dance floor to be included. So it's Sarah Jane, I think that's right, isn't it? I think that's what we've agreed with you and with Theatre Plan, who are our theatre consultants.
That's it. And what we normally do when we've got any dance company in is we normally lay a floor, like a Harlequin floor style, a matting flooring, Annie. I don't know how technical you are, but we normally lay that on top of our stage here anyway for dance companies coming in.
Great. Okay, as a non-dancer, that none of that meant anything to me, but thank you very much anyway. So for those of you who have enjoyed and have been interested by what we've heard tonight, this session is being recorded. We've had permission from all the participants, so it is going to be available on the website. So if you find your way to the website, there's a tab that says special interest, and you will find recordings going back over we started these sessions during COVID, so we've probably got about 10 or 15 sessions that have been recorded now. So do go and have a look, share, and invite other people to have a look if people are interested. So I would like to say a huge thank you to our three guests who have given us very generously of your time. after hours in effect. So firstly to Sarah Jane, thank you so much, and doing great work with the Swan. So hopefully we'll be able to really flourish with this new space. To Jamie, keep going with the money, you'll get there in the end. You seem very optimistic, and that's often, well, I know it depends which sort of coloured hat you're wearing, but actually I like the optimism and the sense that this really is going to happen. And finally to Helen, thank you so much for your very succinct presentation, which I think has really set people's imaginations alive to really look forward to being able to enter that space, hopefully in the not too distant future. So thank you so much, everybody.
Pleasure.
And, good evening.
Thank you.